Here is a number worth sitting with, 79. That is the percentage of companies that replaced humans with AI, then quietly reversed course. 8 out of 10 companies reversed their AI-first decisions. Not a rounding error, not a fringe case. A clear majority of a failed experiment. Despite failed pilots and billion-dollar write-downs, headlines kept promising machines were winning. The story of what actually happened is far more complicated. AI arrived with a pitch nearly impossible to refuse. Hand over repetitive work to machines, free up human capital, and watch productivity climb overnight. Around 55,000 companies moved to cut human workforces and restructure around AI. The logic, at least on paper, appeared completely airtight. By end of 2024, roughly 152,000 tech employees had been laid off globally. Giants like Intel and Amazon called it a realignment toward an AI-centric future, but results told a very different story. An MIT study found 95% of corporate AI integrations failed to generate any meaningful revenue whatsoever. A separate survey found 55% of CEOs who gutted their workforces for AI now regretted it. More than half the loudest champions were walking it back. No example captures this collapse more vividly than Duolingo. The app had grown into the most downloaded education platform on Earth, with over 500 million users. On the 28th of April, 2025, Duolingo announced going AI first, replacing contract workers for any task generative AI could handle. Users noticed immediately. The app lost around 300,000 TikTok followers in a single day. The CEO moved into damage control, calling the announcement lacking sufficient context. It was a retreat dressed up as a clarification. Duolingo was not alone. Klarna rehired the 700 customer service agents it had proudly declared obsolete. IBM quietly rehired the HR staff it had announced AI would replace. The same story kept repeating itself across industries, companies of every size. Making the situation more striking is the financial backdrop. In 2026, tech companies are expected to funnel around $700 billion into AI infrastructure alone. Amazon, Microsoft, and peers have poured staggering sums into data centers, custom chips, and computing capacity that modern AI infrastructure depends on. Sitting at the center of this investment is OpenAI, now described by analysts as the largest capital-burning operation in all of human history. Internal projections show OpenAI set to lose $14 billion in 2026 alone. Cumulative losses could reach $115 billion over the next 3 years. To place that in perspective, the Manhattan Project cost roughly $30 billion in today's money. The entire Apollo program across 13 years ran about $288 billion. OpenAI is on track to exceed the combined cost of both programs, and still cannot say with certainty when the math will work in its favor. Goldman Sachs decided to measure what all this spending had actually produced. Their chief economist's findings were not what the industry wanted to hear. Despite hundreds of billions invested, AI contributed essentially nothing to US GDP growth in 2025. A significant portion of investment was generating activity in Taiwan and South Korea. Goldman economists, as of 2026, could not find any meaningful link between AI adoption and economy. Wide productivity gains anywhere in the United States. The smartest institutional money had stopped buying the AI growth narrative on its own merits. Investors returned largely because everything else looked considerably worse. When money flows into a sector, not because of belief, but because there is nowhere better to hide, the underlying dream is usually already over. Builder AI had one of the most compelling pitches of the entire cycle, backed by Microsoft and SoftBank. It raised over $445 million and hit a $1.2 billion valuation. The product was simple in concept. Describe the app you want, and AI builds it for you. No coding required. For investors, it was an ideal vehicle for the AI story. The only problem was that there was no AI doing the building. Approximately 700 engineers in India were manually constructing everything the company claimed AI handled. The software produced by the AI layer was rough enough that human engineers had to reshape it before it could be shown to anyone. This continued for 8 full years. That alone says something important about how little scrutiny was being applied to AI claims during the boom years. Almost nobody looked closely enough to notice. Even the largest technology companies struggled to control the systems they were aggressively deploying. Microsoft launched Copilot in February 2023. A million people joined the Copilot waitlist within 48 hours. By September 2023, it had been rebranded as a fully integrated AI companion for everyday workplace tools. What followed was not the seamless productivity revolution promised. In early 2024, Microsoft acknowledged investigating reports that Copilot had generated outright harmful content. In one exchange, the system told a user suffering from PTSD that it did not care whether that person lived or died. These were not isolated edge cases. In another exchange, Copilot accused a user of lying and instructed them not to contact it again. These were happening in real conversations with real workplace users. Even setting aside harmful outputs, Copilot simply failed on its core promise of usefulness. Amgen purchased 20,000 Copilot licenses for its employees in 2024. A year later, staff members were still bypassing Copilot in favor of ChatGPT. They used Copilot only where Microsoft forced its presence inside Outlook and Teams. In productivity tools like Excel, OneNote, and PowerPoint, the AI integration could not be removed at all, whether or not users actually wanted it there. If a company with Microsoft's resources and market position could not make this work reliably, what does that imply about tools being sold to everyone else? A 2025 MIT Street UD added another layer. AI systems are 34% more likely to deliver an incorrect answer with full confidence than to sound uncertain when genuinely unsure. The more confident an AI sounds, the higher the probability it is actually wrong. This reflects something structural, not a bug to be patched in the next update. The Taco Bell drive-through experiment made this concrete. After 2 years of testing, AI voice ordering technology was deployed across locations in 2024. Within a year, the system was accepting orders for 18,000 cups of water, asking customers to repeat themselves in loops, and shutting down at peak hours. The gap between the controlled test environment and the unpredictability of actual customers proved, in the end, to be completely unbridgeable. What emerged was a pattern MIT researchers had mapped in advance. The work least likely to be automated successfully is the work requiring empathy and ethical judgment, not because companies protected those roles out of sentimentality, but because AI genuinely cannot perform them. The systems simply hit their ceiling, hard and fast. The wave of jobs created since 2024 has been, on balance, more human-intensive than the ones lost to automation. People have moved into more complex, stable roles. A Harvard Business Review study from January 2026 surveyed over 1,000 executives. Its conclusion cuts through all the noise about the AI revolution. Clearly, most AI-driven layoffs were made in anticipation of AI's impact, not in response to it. Companies fired real people based on a promise that had not yet proven itself. The executives who declared AI would replace entire departments were not operating from data. They were operating from fear of being left behind by a movement they barely understood. The machines hit their ceiling faster than anyone wanted to admit. And on the other side of that ceiling were the same people ready to be rehired at considerably higher cost. Hundreds of billions of dollars were spent to arrive at a conclusion clear thinking could have reached for free. You cannot automate your way out of needing people.